Good morning, good afternoon, good day, everybody on the phone or on the computer. Thank you for joining. This is the Cognitive Systems Institute Group Speaker Series. Today I'm happy to introduce Scott MacLeod, who's the founder and president of World University and School, which offers the best STEM-centric open courseware and leverages MIT OpenCourseware in 7 languages and Yale's OpenCourseware to offer free Creative Commons licensed degrees in most countries' main languages. World University is planning to develop a Universal Translator and Wikidata. Scott's research focuses on the anthropology, sociology of information technology. He's taught courses in information technology, the Network Society, and the Global University on Harvard's Virtual Island for many years. He's recently published an active virtual ethnographic book about Harbin Hot Springs in Northern California. He's also the author of Digital Spatial Representations, New Communications Processes, and Middle Eastern UNESCO World Heritage Sites Online. Thanks, Scott, for being our presenter today, and I will turn the call over to you.
Thank you very much, Diane. I'm grateful for the possibility of speaking to all of you. I'm going to share today about World University and School, and particularly about our Universal Translator as a cognitive system, beginning as a guidebook with tests. World University and School is like Wikipedia in about 300 languages now, with best STEM-centric open courseware, and is planned for all languages, 7,943 languages, and all countries, with online university degrees in large languages and most countries, accrediting on CC, Creative Commons licensed MIT OpenCourseware in 7 languages, and Creative Commons licensed Yale Open Yale courses, for example. I'm Scott MacLeod, the founder and president, and World University and School began in 2008 in a course I was teaching as a conversation on society and information technology on Harvard's Virtual Island in cyberspace. So the World University and School 1000 Universal Translator Language Challenge focuses on the largest languages. And out of the 7,900 and some languages in the world, over 1,000 of these languages have written forms and literate populations of over 100,000 people. We're developing a cognitive systems grand challenge, and we're seeking collaborators who want to work on getting relevant Universal Translator projects defined and funded. We're seeking to build and create a reasonably complex learning module and test in over 1,300 languages. And I've also presented about this at ISIP last March 2015. The blog entry there has a little bit about that. In this grand challenge for a Universal Translator learning module, so this would be a kind of course which someone could learn from, which would also be a translatable into any of these 1,000+ languages, would be composed of a standardized guidebook. So think of a textbook with a test in over 1,300 languages, and would be a proof point that can help develop, drive the development of cognitive computing componentry in machine translation, machine learning, natural language processing, and knowledge representation, and other areas needed to develop cognitive assistance for all occupations in all languages. So a good example is the California State Driver's Handbook. And I think it's already in some 8 to 10 languages, and it's test. So this would be an example of a Universal Translator learning module submission. It's not in the form of a Universal Translator yet, but it could be the resources, the sort of the linguistic building blocks of a Universal Translator. If the faculty programmers who submitted this grand challenge negotiated any needed content rights with the state of California for research and education purposes, and demonstrated eventually the vetting of more than 1,000 languages, 1,000 translations. Another example would be the New Testament Bible, which has been translated without copyright into some 1,300 languages. So it's perhaps the example, the best example of kind of open source material in all these languages that then could be adapted, and a sample test could emerge from this. It's another example of a possible Universal Translator learning module submission. So World University and School is seeking collaborators, faculty members and programmers to submit a rigorous and operational Grand Challenge description based on the World University and School 1000 Challenge that advances the goal of World University and School in an outstandingly creative and operationally easy to test manner that still, 1, helps learners in over 1,000 languages learn material and pass a test, and 2, helps advance the state of the art in machine translations in systems. So in terms of World University and School itself, developing this Universal Translator, it would further translate the Creative Commons MIT OpenCourseWare in 7 languages, and the Creative Commons licensed Yale Open Yale courses, there are only about 42 courses, from English into all countries' official languages, and vice versa. MIT OpenCourseWare has about 2,300 courses in English, mostly undergraduate and graduate level courses, and its 6 other languages have roughly 50 to 100 courses in them each. And it's typically a university in the country's main language that has taken on the translation to create those 50 to 100 courses. So World University and School's Universal Translator will translate much more than MIT OpenCourseWare and also these examples of guidebooks with tests. And there's an example in this blog entry on the screen of translating from English to German a few World University and School Media Wiki pages, having used the Google Translate machine translator, which translates roughly 100 languages these days, and without voice, as I understand it. So World University and School has 14 initial focuses, and I'm just going to briefly go through them. They're very wide-ranging. They're conceptual. They, in a way, focus what could be an enormous variety of approaches to coding a universal translator. So first, this World University and School General Translator would seek to translate between all 7,943 plus languages, and that's per glottolog, which lists and codes all these languages. A comparative source for all languages is the Ethnologue, based in Texas, which lists currently 7,097 living languages. There are a lot of from and to pairings in whichever listing you choose, which greatly makes the potential helpfulness and complexity of a universal translator significant. And so this general universal translator would build on Google Translate and, for example, Wikimedia content translation, which is Wikipedia's emerging content translator, planning for voice and text. Secondly, the World University and School Universal Translator would focus on translating STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, where MIT really is a premier university in the world for this, and now in 6 other languages through MIT OpenCourseWare, as well as the social sciences and humanities areas. It would, again, and this is the kind of kernel of the programming for this grand challenge, Universal Translator, it would engage a kind of guidebook with test approach. So it could be an MIT course with tests, which creates kind of differential coding possibilities, contrasting possible answers which programming languages excel at, as a course or a learning module. So these next initial foci of the World University and School Universal Translator begin to explore conceptually further possibilities. So a further approach would include one that focuses on questions of human consciousness via each of all 8,000 languages with phoneme, sound, text as markers that could be traced to brain neurophysiology and neuronal firings and linked with other parts of the brain, and emerging from the philosophical literature on mind, for example, philosophy of mind, philosophy of consciousness. And of course, the very new developments with brainwave headsets could then create a kind of computer-brain interface that would be remarkably fruitful and generative for brain research. MIT OpenCourseWare has put its MIT department on brain and cognitive science courses online. Another fifth focus would be one that makes Latin significant. It's been learned as a second language from so many languages and is so logical and has influenced also particularly Western language development. Although World University and School's 3 pilot languages may well be Spanish and Mandarin Chinese besides English, both of which are MIT OpenCourseWare languages. But that World University and School could also focus on the 300 languages of Wikipedia Wikidata. This will emerge in the next year or two. A sixth initial focus would include philosophical question-generating approach. Could be akin to the Socratic method, and especially since analytical Western philosophy puts logic central, and furthermore, therefore, as a kind of information technology. A seventh focus would include contextualizing all languages' cultural understandings of spoken and written words in any given conversation. That indeed gets complex, and as an anthropologist who's just written an actual virtual Harbin Hot Springs ethnographic book, the contextualizing of languages might well be facilitated even as simply as engaging YouTube videos for translation questions for context. An eighth initial focus would include a universal translator that works in extreme conditions with ambient sound, such as a smartphone in a digital swimming mask translating between two surfers between two languages, both underwater, above water. That would be a very interesting engineering challenge that would complexify the from-to of any given pairing of languages translations. A 14th initial focus, in terms of a ninth initial focus, in terms of machine conversation as a generative tool per new idea creation that can happen in human conversation. So people talk around the seminar table around a series of questions in any university, and if this conversation is focused, new ideas emerge around these questions. Reed College's pedagogical method, the conference method, is one instantiation of this, but this could be coded for too. 4 avatars in a virtual open simulator or Second Life could be a visual representation of what might emerge as a conversation between that would inform translation. A 10th focus would include specific artificial intelligence and machine learning foci around questions of agency. So agency has to do with choice, intentional causation, the independence of an entity. And these are kind of intractable questions in philosophy as well. And that's what makes them potentially interesting for a universal translator and also for fields such as robotics and cognitive systems in many different ways, translation-wise. So a universal translator, the 11th initial focus, could help us understand when avatars in virtual worlds, for example, achieve kinds of agency concerning intentional causation, choices, independent entities, consciousness. It could be the Turing test where a human can't understand or know whether they're talking to a robot or a human. Is one way of understanding whether robots or translating cognitive systems have achieved a kind of agency. That there are many approaches that one might test this with, but the Turing test is one interesting example. And then lastly, on the Creative Commons nonprofit World University and School side of the Universal Translator Grand Challenge, it would include a service science programming approach. There's particularly one programmer who's excelled at some of these questions of servant science programming. His name is Paul Huppertz, and he's also quite involved with ISIP, of which Jim Sporer, who Diane Fodell just said was the founder of CSIG, is also, I think, a significant founder of ISIP. And Paul Huppertz is involved in ISIP to some degree, along with Jim's focus on service science in general. Paul has sort of operationalized programming around service science principles in a fascinating, realizable way in computer science. This would have implications for a universal translator too. So World University and Schools Universal Translator is being developed on our 501c3 Creative Commons core side. World University and School also has a planned for-profit side where we would like to have two revenue streams around textbook and book translation at the academic press and around a bookstore, computer store, each in all of 8,000 languages. So a universal translator could be used on the Creative Commons sort of open side to produce textbooks that would then be for sale. This has enormous utility in business and in academia as well. So these are sort of the 13th and 14th initial foci for this universal translator in plan for all 7,943 languages. And the bottom bullet point on this slide has the blog entry with these 14 initial foci at World University and Schools blog at worlduniversityandschool.blogspot.com. So to recap and conclude and leave 5 or 6 minutes for questions, Creative Commons World University and School is like Creative Commons Wikipedia in roughly 300 languages and is therefore editable. So Wiki, like Wikipedia, is something that we can all edit. We've created millions of articles in roughly 300 languages thanks to Wiki technologies. And World University and School would like to create its universal translator as, to some degree, being Wiki editable. Of course, coding is a kind of Wiki approach, but Wikipedia has been relatively easy to use, and that's created all these languages and millions of articles. Creative Commons licensing here refers to sharing and adapting. We'll adopt a similar license as we have as MIT OpenCourseWare to 7 languages, which means that we can share with MIT OpenCourseWare. It means, for example, after much communication with MIT this spring, that we can put all 7 languages of MIT OpenCourseWare into a database and develop it with artificial intelligence further and machine translation thanks to Creative Commons licensing. So it's also extensible, which the whole internet is, interestingly, and Wiki makes it extensible in different ways. We'd also like to build on Wiktionary, which is the Wikimedia Foundation, Wikipedia's sort of sister project, which has a word focus, like dictionary. And that maybe become the basis of World University and Schools CC Universal Translator within Wikidata. Anyone can create a subject page in any language. Here's a current list on the screen of the main open wiki subjects. Anyone can edit these pages, familiar academic pages or something very creative. Dr. Seuss's birds, if you had a particular interest in that. And all of these would become bases potentially for machine translation. So we're like Wikipedia with best STEM-centric Creative Commons open courseware. There's some links to the open courseware. We're also course-centric, and this Universal Translator would be a course in and of itself, or build on the guidebook with test of the California driving test example. The degrees we want to offer on our degree side, in contrast to our wiki side, are bachelor, PhD, law, medical degrees, and international baccalaureate high school degrees in large languages in most countries. And the Universal Translator would include translating between video and in virtual worlds. And here's the MIT professor Anant Agarwal, president of edX, in a video as an example of a circuits and electronics course we'd like to translate. It's already been translated. The course has been translated into some of the 6 other MIT OpenCourseWare courses, non-English. And courses would be in group video, such as Google Plus Group Video or this web conferencing or MIT Unhangouts, and that would be resourced for translation as well. And we're also for open teaching and learning with a new wiki subject page in any language. The subject template at the bottom of this screen is kind of the basis for all World University and School, and will emerge so as we move from our Wikia wiki to our next wiki, probably in something like MediaWiki. So for the proposed Grand Challenge, please contact info@worlduniversityandschool.org, or you can contact Jim Sporer, I think, with whom I'm in touch. So we're a new community of interest, and we'll also focus on service economic models, measures, and impacts. I thank you very much. This is the island where World University and School, Harvard's virtual island where World University and School began, where we'd like to have a universal translator in something now like Google Street View. So are there questions in the remaining few minutes?
Thanks, Scott. Audience, please press 1 to unmute your lines on the phone or unmute on the computer, the microphone. Does anybody have questions for Scott about this ambitious Grand Challenge? Scott, it's astounding that there's almost 8,000 languages in the world. I'm guessing some of them have very few in the population compared to the main languages. What is the motivation for doing every single language?
There are many motivations, but potentially we can. The Universal Translator can be a way to keep languages alive. There's great value in linguistic diversity. Anthropologists and linguists could go out to populations where there are only 5 speakers left and record their languages further. We would also like to create, in many ways, through our academic press and a Universal Translator, language markets, in a sense. So where a kind of academic publishing in languages which have 5 speakers, there are many languages, so-called dead languages, which have enormous communities, Latin being the far-reaching example, where the academic press is enormous. But an academic press could further help generate, keep these languages alive. And the academic perspective on this is they're interesting in and of themselves. They're a product of human knowledge generation over hundreds of thousands of years. They could even have commercial utility later on. They'll certainly be helpful in developing cognitive systems in new ways, in a nutshell.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Is anybody having problems unmuting? I can unmute all the lines. So if you press *1 before, press it again if you can't be heard. I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask a question, even though we're about out of time. Well, I'll post a discussion group topic on this, and you can continue the discussion with Scott there. Audience, thank you. I am going to be out the next 2 weeks, but my colleagues Nancy, Lillian, and Wendy are going to run the calls for me in the next 2 weeks. So I will update the calendar notice with the latest numbers for the next 2 weeks, and look forward to having you join then. And thanks for your participation today. Thank you very much, Scott, for being our presenter, and I hope everyone has a happy Cinco de Mayo.
Thanks so much, Diane, and thank you all.
Bye now.